Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Cone Roger here. Welcome to another installment of Cone on the Road. It is the very end of February 2018, and let's see. I guess really the last time we did a Cone on the Road, it was right after all of the January madness. A lot of cool stuff happening in January, but it was right before I was headed south to try and watch the Falcon 9 Heavy launch, which for February was pretty much the only thing I had on my agenda. I didn't really have anything else big lined up, but that was a big one, and that happened, the first week of February there, and boy, was it a surprise. I really had no intentions or no expectations of that going down the way that it did. I talked about it pretty extensively on a Twitch live stream, but perhaps you didn't see that. So basically, I live up in North Florida, and the Cape is 2.5 hours or so from me. I've known about the Falcon Heavy launch for a very long time, basically since it was announced. It's something that myself and Kurt have talked about a lot in the past, and I know he was always, very into it. So it's been something circled on my calendar, and something I've always I totally forgot. Oh man, I totally forgot about the squeaky pedal. Here, I'll shift the other way. It's just been something circled on my calendar as a must-see. I have recently, as of the past 5 years, gotten very interested in space and exploration, and especially in rocketry. If you're into motorsports, if you're into cars, if you're into the engineering of such things, then it's not really a stretch. The world of rocketry it really has a lot of the same appeal to it. But on top of that, I like space exploration. I like the fact that humanity desires to push forward and explore more, rather than getting stagnant and stale and no longer desiring to explore and innovate and things like that. It's hard to justify to some people spending money, spending time, spending people's lives, or costing, risking people's lives for the advent of space travel. That's a very hard thing to kind of justify to some. And I understand absolutely why that would be difficult to justify. But for me, it all really comes back down to purpose. I guess some people can't just be happy living life through, just their everyday, day-to-day activities. Maybe it's because I don't, necessarily have a family or, people to look after. I don't really have the weight of the world weighing down me and on responsibility and things like that I think this way, and perhaps that's a factor why people struggle to feel the same way. But for me, I need to know that humanity is still trying, that we're still trying to do new, untold, unbelievable things, and exploring as far as humanity can possibly reach is a big part of that. It's just comforting for me to know that we're still trying to reach to new bounds. I feel like if I was 300 years older and we were exploring new lands, I would feel the same way. Or if I could have been around for our first big space race, I imagine I would have felt very much so the same way. Will it affect my day-to-day life? No. Will it cure anybody's diseases? Very unlikely. But I think there's something to be said for giving humanity hope and giving people a goal and having aspirations and just, I don't know, a purpose. I realize it's not the same. It's not the same as curing a disease, but it doesn't mean that it's not important. So this Falcon Heavy mission, it's tied to that in that, you know, it's the closest anybody has come to actually pushing the boundaries of space in a very long time. I never personally got to go see a shuttle mission, and I deeply regret that. I for sure do. But even those weren't necessarily pushing the boundaries so much as they were maintaining status quo. And to me, my whole generation of growing up, it really just seemed like that's what was the accepted and right thing to do in society. Your job was to maintain, your job was to do well, and you know, provide for a family, and you were to be you know, an upstanding member of society, and that's all that mattered. And it's broad reaching, sure, but really the whole shuttle program kind of fit to that mantra of okay, we're doing this, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, we're going to explore, we're going to, you know, keep doing our experiments on, you know, Earth orbit, low Earth orbit, and that's kind of it. Although that's cool, and there was a lot of fascinating things that came out of the Space Shuttle program and obviously the International Space Station programs still today. It's not as inspiring. It's very extremely scientific and done for extremely specific reasons, and it just doesn't inspire a new generation at all, and it never did for my generation. I grew up in North Florida, and as a kid, there was never any real buzz around shuttle launches or anything like that. There was never any real push for getting interested in space travel and things like that. Sure, there was kids that wanted to be astronauts and stuff like that. That was, you know, that's a grade school, a grade school phenomenon where kids want to be astronauts. You know, it's just one of those things that sounds really cool to an 8-year-old. But once it came down to reality, and, you know, high school and pushing forward in that, really not something that was ever really discussed. But this feels different. This feels like something and someone being Elon Musk, and just an overall something, you know, is an aspiration that feels like something that I've never really experienced. And it's just uncontrolled desire to explore and uncontrolled desire to push boundaries. And so far throughout SpaceX's history, this launch was kind of the greatest extremity of that. And we've all heard of their plans to go even crazy further than that with their big Falcon rocket and things like that. You know, these are completely far-reaching, Mars-reaching, you know, solar system-reaching missions to push humanity to where it's never been before. And I want to be able to feel like that's something that as humanity we find important. It doesn't make the other stuff less important. It doesn't make, you know, solving, you know, curing diseases or solving world hunger, you know, trying to better understand ourselves, better distribute and help with mental health issues, something I've talked about in the past. It's just, it would be nice to be able to feel okay about that stuff, and I don't feel like it's been allowed to feel okay about that stuff probably since the 60s. I don't feel like desiring to explore space has been something that's been okay. And I don't fully understand why. There's a lot of factors why, but it's something that's just kind of really baffling to me. But I think it would just be really good for humanity to distract us a little bit from the micro details of our lives. I feel like as a people, we're stuck in a mentality of trying to min-max our lives, and that just makes for a less inspired and less happy humanity from my perspective. I don't like the fact that we spend most of our time talking about either things that have happened in the past, debating completely nuanced details of society. We're still trying to figure out, equality and things of these matters. It's things that it seemed like we had such a good grasp on when we were making such strides at. It feels like we're now going backwards on things like that for the sake of having something to talk about. I really do feel that way. Like it feels like we're discussing nuances of society that I thought we had settled, purely for the fact of our lives are so boring now that that's the only thing that people have to talk about. And I'm sure that's an aggressive stance on the issue on my part, but it's just something that I've started to feel like over the past year or so. That's just one of the ways I've interpreted the overall climate of society here lately. Does it all boil down to space travel and space flight? No, hell no. That's just such a small little detail of it. But overall, I feel like I'm part of a generation, and maybe came from a generation that gave up on dreaming, that just gave up on trying stuff for the effect of being the best. And being the best, trying to be the best, can be pretty damn boring. I gotta be honest with you. At least that's the way I feel. I'm trying to cut at points where my foot's squeaking on the clutch pedal. I took the thing over to one of the do-it-yourself car wash places because it was just covered in pollen and trees. Or not trees, it was covered in trees. It was covered in sap and leaves and crap like that, so I decided to wash it off. Florida, yay, spring is here. It's not even March yet. So that's a lot of detail about why the Falcon 9 launch, or the Heavy launch, was important to me. I don't know really where that conversation came from, to be honest with you. I started talking and that's where my brain went. I talked a lot about the actual launch, but the actual launch was really phenomenal. I went down there and met up with a member, actually kind of new to our communities, my community or Kurt's community, but I had interacted quite a bit with in HC and Justin's community. He mentioned he was going to the launch as well. And since Kurt wasn't able to go, it was just, it would have been a huge financial risk, basically, for Kurt to go. Well, since he wasn't going, and I tried like hell to convince Justin to go, but he couldn't really justify it either. And I couldn't justify really pushing him to go. But yeah, I saw that Rocket Whale was going to go, so I met up with him down there. I woke up real early to drive down there because I knew it was going to be a crazy launch. It was crazy. The amount of people down at the Cape were just unbelievable. When I do things like that, I'm obsessive about planning for it and having backup plans and stuff like that. I had all sorts of backup plans of where to view, where to park. I had to execute a lot of those backup plans. So I ended up parking we'll say 3 miles south of where my ideal viewing location was. So I ended up executing almost all of my backup plans. I parked about 3 miles south of Jetty Park, where I wanted to view from. And then from there, I had to hike 3 miles up the beach. And then the beach was closed because they were doing some construction on the beach to lay some kind of weird pipe thing that was apparently, the start of the game Soma. And from there, this is new. This has been completed since the last time I came through here. From there, I had to hike about a mile inland and then a mile back to the beach, I was exhausted just from hiking down the beach with my camera and everything like that. And yeah, that was exhausting. And then by the time I actually made it to Jetty Park, it had become pretty apparent that there were some major delays and possibly not even going to go on that day. So at that point, I mean, I was prepared for that. Like I said, I found it very unlikely that the rocket was going to go up first try, and just kind of hung out there with Rocket Whale, who snuck me into Jetty Park after it had reached capacity, and that was pretty much the way the day was going. And then pretty much the end of the launch window, much to the surprise of all of us, because we were somewhere with no announcing or anything. We had no real ties to any kind of feed. Sure enough, the darn thing went up. It was, I mean, it's been a long time now, and thinking about the launch experience still gives me goosebumps. It was just a very surreal thing, and for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, even more so than the fact I think that it was just a real badass launch with 27 engines, you know, firing 3 individual rockets up and then 2 coming back down right in front of us and landing. Beyond the fact that that was phenomenal and incredible, it meant a lot to me there at the moment, and even for the weeks after, as it really sunk in what had happened there. It was a very cool experience. Like I said, I talked extensively about the launch on Twitch. That archive's still up there on Twitch if you wanted to see the footage that I have, which is terrible. I put zero emphasis into taking footage because I wanted to just be there to experience it. And I'm glad that I did. But that pretty much set me up for the rest of the month. And I think in combination with all the cool stuff I did in January, and then that, and then going into February, it put me in a bad place. Not only financially, because I spent a lot of money on doing those 3 things. I still owe money for one of the things that I did in January. But it also put me in a bad place mentally, I think, just because I had all of that, you know, elation, and then all of a sudden just kind of reality and an actual, like, having to think about day-to-day life stuff wasn't too great. It was not a great couple weeks there. It's not been a great month for me, just trying to kind of find my place. I talked a bit last time about pushing to try for Twitch partnership. Fell short of that, so that was another blow for me. Just kind of compounded all of those feels with that, and it just put me in a bad place. Wasn't feeling too good. It just kind of all mounted up to me like, wow, this is probably not going to be a successful venture. That's what it boiled down to. Is like I started like in my head running the numbers of everything and going, I don't know about this. I'm guessing this is probably eventually going to come to a heads, and I still kind of feel that way. Like in looking at the grand scheme of things, I'm not giving up. I will not surrender until like it's just not feasible anymore. But it's starting to really weigh on me a bit. And maybe that's just the slump of you know, it's only been 3-4 months, and maybe this is just kind of like the bottom, and the work I'm putting in now will pay off later. You know, that's kind of where I've gotten to now, where I'm trying to bring myself back up and out of it. Is, you know, whenever you take a risk, whenever you take a leap and try to do something, especially something crazy, you're going to have that moment of being in free fall of like, oh God, this is terrible, everything's bad, before your feet touch down again and you feel okay. So I just have to hope that we're just in that point now of free fall, but eventually our feet are going to touch back down and things will push forward again. Sure as hell doesn't help the uncomfortableness of this industry right now, and the uncertainty of it. It doesn't help that a lot of my peers are kind of feeling in similar ways, it seems. But I still see the potential there. I still see hope that there's a chance for this stuff, and I've tied all of that back into what I was talking about in the beginning, is that it's not the easy way to go. It's not the min-max strategy. It's not the path to success that they show you in, I don't know, a poster or whatever. But to dream and to try and push for a unlikely goal is something that I wish society did more. So I'm putting it on my shoulders to keep at it and to keep dreaming and to keep pushing to do something that I think probably isn't possible. And if you had told me 5 years ago that I would try to make that possible, I would say it would be madness. That would be crazy, especially in the position that I am. That's it would be super unlikely. But I have just kept pushing, and I'll be honest with you, the past couple weeks really been pushing through, and I do believe that it was probably visible that I was kind of not 100% there, and maybe just kind of plugging along a little bit. Hopefully not. I'm usually pretty good at suppressing the bad feels for when I'm actually actively trying to do something, or record or stream or whatnot. But I'm sure it was there. Honestly, recording these almost always makes me feel better, just because it forces me to talk through the stuff that I've been, just kind of mulling over, and rationalize it with myself, and try to recalibrate myself back into thinking about what the actual goal is, and just the broader picture, I suppose. I was feeling real bad and just real down about kind of giving up on a lot of the other things that I was working on before trying this adventure. I felt like I was losing a lot of my connections locally. Like, there's just so many people that I've been friends with locally that I hadn't talked to in a long time. I hadn't hung out with. I hadn't really done anything, like autocross wise. I hadn't seen most of those people. So just last Sunday, I went out, even though I don't have a car that can autocross right now. I just went and hung out with everybody. I served as photographer. People are so thankful for that, because autocross isn't something that a lot of, I almost called myself a professional photographer. No. But, that people who, are hobbyists at photography, it's not something that a lot of them do. And most of them that would do it are running in the event. So that's what I went up there. I drove an hour and a half. I drove 50 miles just to hang out and do photography at autocross. And it felt great. It felt great, reconnecting with the people that were there. Ton of new faces. Trying to keep myself relevant still in that community. It's important to me. And beyond that, just, some other, I could count on one hand the amount of actual, local friends that I have here. But I've been trying diligently to make sure I stay connected with them and, help out with their projects and stuff like that. It's good for me. It's good to do that, and I think it's important because, I was just feeling like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why I hate this area. Why don't I just try, moving somewhere I want to be, maybe get a real job somewhere else? Is one of the thoughts that kind of went through my brain. luckily, I was able to find an alternate strategy to work through that. Thanks, Jeff, for recommending an alternate strategy. Something I'm going to work on, and something that I think will help me feel better, is I am personally going to kind of take the reins on the Mark II Super Project. I feel like Slagathor has kind of become uninspired to work on it, and I know financially he's not able to really put money into it right now. So I'm gonna maybe lower down the aspirations a little bit, the goal, maybe tone it down just a bit, and I want to just get it going again and get it, nice and reliable, street drivable. Obviously, the windshield issue will be fixed. I can do the rest of the body work. I can do the welding on the body. There's no reason that I can't do that stuff, even if maybe we no longer have the budget to do some of the other goals that we had involved there. I'm shifting really poorly right now, trying my darndest not to slide my foot on the clutch pedal, and it's really hard. So yeah, that's something I'm gonna try and do, is do what I can. Obviously, I don't have money to really dump into the thing to mark off everything on the list. But I think if I could get it running again, if I could get it street drivable again, it's not only gonna inspire me, but I think it'll probably inspire him. Because when he got the Fiat, I feel like it kind of uninspired him to work on the car, and there wasn't that need anymore to have the fun vehicle. There wasn't the push any longer there wasn't the drive to get it going. And considering the financial burden of it, it's hard to push through that for sure. Does that mean that there will be a lot of Cone's Garage episodes? Maybe not. I'll try to get some stuff recorded for sure. It's even harder now to justify doing that stuff. As passionate as I am about it, and as much as I want to do more in real life car content, the cost to return is not there. Like, that is 100% a money losing venture for me, and that's real hard to justify doing at the moment. But like I said, if I can do stuff that doesn't necessarily cost money and I can keep myself involved with it, then it's something that's still worth doing, and I think it'll make me feel better. Unfortunately, Red's a little beyond that. Red is at a point where the cost of re-entry for it is too high. So that might not even be a this year goal. I don't know. It depends on how things go. But if I could get the Supra going again, and then hopefully start working on the Datsun, that would be enough, I think, for the year to distract me from the fact that Red is not going. I believe that's possible. The title for that truck, that's where our holdup is with that project. There's a lot of stuff I want to do with that. Again, money-wise, sure, there's a barrier there. But honestly, if we could get the title situation sorted, and I would like to just get it operating as it is, to drive it on the street, and just see where it is, see what else might need to be done. Because at this point, I don't really know what we're up against with that project. There could be a lot more that needs to be done with it. There could be almost nothing that needs to be done with it. But we're not going to find that out without trying and without getting it on the road. So yeah, that's another big one for me. I think that's probably going to do it for Code on the Road today. I feel like I've discussed the things that were on my mind and I wanted to discuss about. I know I don't have a lot of future plans to really go over with you. There are other things that I've been working on in the background that are very fun and exciting, but I don't have a timeline on anything, so I don't know when that will happen. But I do want to say thank you, everybody, for supporting me. If it wasn't for our core community support of me and my content and my peers' content, then I would have probably had to bail on this a long time ago. So it's purely through your support that I can keep going. So it's very much so appreciated. With that, thank you everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.